Hello everyone, today we confront one of the most explosive and enduring debates in all of world history. Was Qin Shi Huang, the man who forged China's first unified empire, a revolutionary titan of civilization, whose reforms shaped 2 millennia of global history, or a sadistic power-obsessed tyrant, whose cruelty doomed his dynasty and devastated an entire people? This is not a casual discussion of ancient kings, it is a forensic investigation into power, ambition, morality, and the terrifying cost of building a nation. We will rely strictly on peer-reviewed historical scholarship, primary sources from the Qin and Han dynasties, and archaeological evidence to strip away legend, propaganda, and moral grandstanding. By the end of this video, you will understand why this man remains both worshipped as a foremost emperor and condemned as one of the cruelest rulers who ever lived. Let us begin in the chaos of the Warring States period, a 250-year bloodbath where 7 major kingdoms fought non-stop for total dominance. For centuries, China was a fractured landscape of competing languages, currencies, laws, and cultures. Travelers could not cross borders without converting money, rewriting documents, or facing entirely different legal systems. Farmers paid conflicting taxes, soldiers used incompatible weapons, and scholars argued in mutually unintelligible scripts. This endless division meant constant war, famine, and instability. The people did not just want unity, they begged for it. Into this apocalyptic chaos stepped Ying Zheng, the king of Qin, a state forged by legalist reforms that prioritized state power, strict law, and military efficiency above all else. By 221 BCE, at just 39 years old, he had conquered every rival kingdom, ending centuries of bloodshed and unifying all Chinese lands under a single throne. He did not stop at conquest. He reinvented what it meant to be a ruler. He abandoned the old title king and created a new, divine-sounding title, Huangdi, or emperor. He named himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, and declared his dynasty would rule for 10,000 generations. This was not just a victory in war. It was a revolution in political thought that would define East Asia forever. His list of transformative achievements is staggering, and every single one shaped China's identity for the next 2,000 years. First, he abolished the feudal system that had caused endless civil war. Instead of giving land to noble families who would later rebel, he divided the empire into 36 commanderies, later expanded to 40, ruled directly by appointed officials, answerable only to the emperor. This is the system of centralized governance we call the Zhengxian system, or commanderies and counties. Every major Chinese dynasty that followed copied this blueprint. As Tang dynasty scholar Liu Zongyuan famously noted, the fall of Qin was due to popular anger, not flaws in its administrative system. Second, he standardized everything that divided the old states: writing, currency, weights, measures, and even the axle width of carts. Before unification, 7 different writing systems made unified governance impossible. Qin Shi Huang ordered minister Li Si to create a single, simplified script, called Xiaozuan, or small seal script, which became the universal written language of China. This single act ensured that, despite countless dialects, China would always share a common literary and cultural bond. He introduced a round copper coin with a square hole, the ban liang, which became the model for Chinese currency for centuries. He built a network of imperial highways called Qidao, stretching over 6,800 kilometers, connecting the capital, Xianyang, to every corner of the empire. This was ancient China's first national transportation grid, enabling rapid military movement, tax collection, and trade. Militarily, Qin Shi Huang secured China's frontiers against nomadic raiders. He sent 300,000 soldiers north to defeat the Xiongnu and connected existing northern walls into a single, continuous defensive barrier, the early Great Wall. To the south, he conquered the Yu tribes and built the Linggu Canal, linking the Yangtze and Pearl River systems, opening southern China to Han Chinese settlement and economic integration. These projects were engineering marvels that expanded China's borders and secured its survival against external threats. There is no question without these reforms, China, as we know it, would not exist. It would likely have fractured into dozens of small competing nations, much like medieval Europe. Historians across the political spectrum agree that Qin Shi Huang's unification created the foundation of Chinese civilization, a legacy unmatched by almost any other ruler in human history. But greatness came at a horrific price, and this is where the label of tyrant becomes impossible to ignore. Qin's governance was built on legalism, a philosophy that rejected morality, tradition, and benevolence in favor of absolute state control and harsh punishment. Laws were brutal and universal. Even minor crimes carried heavy penalties, including mutilation, forced labor, and collective punishment, where entire families were executed for one person's offense. The historical record describes streets filled with prisoners in red prison uniforms and jails, so overcrowded they resembled markets. Taxes and corvée labor were crippling. The Qin Empire had roughly 20 million people, and over 3 million men, more than 15% of the population, were conscripted for military service or massive construction projects. They built the Yipang Palace, a sprawling imperial complex. The Lishan Mausoleum, Qin Shi Huang, giant tomb, guarded by the Terracotta army. The Great Wall, and thousands of kilometers of roads. Millions died from exhaustion, starvation, exposure, or execution. Families were torn apart. Farms were abandoned. Women and children struggled to survive without male labor. The people did not just dislike Qin rule. They suffered under it. As the classic phrase goes, all under heaven have long suffered from Qin. The most infamous controversy is the burning of books and burying of scholars, often simplified as Fen Shu Kung Ru. In 213 BC, Qin Shi Huang, following Li Si's advice, ordered the burning of all non-utilitarian texts, Confucian classics, historical records from the old states, poetry and philosophy. Only books on medicine, agriculture, divination, and legalism were spared. The goal was to eliminate dissenting thought and prevent scholars from criticizing imperial policy. A year later, he ordered the execution of more than 460 scholars and alchemists who had deceived him about immortality, elixirs, or questioned his rule. Mainstream historians clarify this was not a random massacre of all Confucians, but a targeted purge of political opposition. Nevertheless, it became a symbol of cultural destruction and authoritarian terror, staining Qin Shi Huang's reputation for all time. His reign ended in paranoia, and paranoia bred more cruelty. Fearing assassination, he hid his movements, executed anyone who revealed his location, and trusted no one. When he died suddenly in 210 BCE, during a tour of the empire, a ruthless power struggle erupted. Chief eunuch Zhao Gao and Li Si forged the imperial edict, killing the rightful heir Fu Su, and placing the weak corrupt Hu Hai on the throne as Qing Shi. The new emperor doubled down on oppression, higher taxes, harsher laws, more forced labor. In 209 BCE, a group of conscripts led by Chen Sheng and Wu Guang missed a deadline to report for duty. Under Qin law, they faced execution. With nothing to lose, they revolted. What began as a small uprising exploded into a nationwide rebellion. Peasants, former nobles, and disgruntled soldiers all rose up. Just 3 years after Qin Shi Huang's death, his 10,000-generation dynasty collapsed. The empire he built in blood lasted only 15 years. So how do we judge him? Is he a titan or a tyrant? The answer is not binary. He was both. His achievements were cosmic. He ended centuries of war, created a unified Chinese nation, built institutions and cultural systems that lasted 2,000 years, and laid the groundwork for the world's longest continuous civilization. Without Qin Shi Huang, there is no China as we recognize it. Yet his methods were unspeakably cruel. He ruled through fear, destroyed lives and culture, overtaxed his people, and built his legacy on the bones of millions. His dynasty collapsed because he gave his people no reason to love or support the state, only fear. Modern historical consensus sums it up best: his merits benefited 1,000 generations, while his crimes harmed only his own era. He solved the existential crisis of fragmentation, but created a new crisis of authoritarian overreach. He is a lesson to all rulers: unity without justice, power without mercy, and progress without compassion will always collapse under their own weight. Qin Shi Huang's shadow still looms over China and the world. He shows us that history's greatest giants often walk hand in hand with its darkest monsters. To understand him is to understand the brutal, glorious, and tragic birth of a civilization. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history. See you next time.